Growing questions about the destruction of a critical dam along the front lines in Ukraine. We've got new video into out front. This is a building being swept away as the floodwaters just completely race across the terrain. Now, Ukraine had warned that if the dam ever was compromised, nearly 5 billion gallons of water would flood southern Ukraine. That's equivalent to the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And one Ukrainian officer tells CNN that his men watched Russian soldiers actually being swept away. So let me just show you where this dam is to give you a sense of it, right? You're along the crucial Dnipro River and right along the front line of this war. Russia has been control of one side, Ukraine on the other. Nearby, of course, is Europe's largest nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia, which relies on the water in this reservoir to cool its reactors. And Ukraine is blaming Russia tonight.
This deliberate destruction of the dam and other HPP facilities by the Russian occupiers is an environmental bomb of mass destruction. For the sake of their own security, the world should now show that Russia will not get away with such terror.
Russia denies it, blaming Ukraine. The United States is still investigating, it says, according to intelligence. Earlier, Zelensky's senior advisor spoke to Out Front, and he said the attack was to stop Ukraine's highly anticipated counteroffensive, right, which had been the whole goal was to cross the Dnipro River. The United States, of course, believes that counteroffensive has begun. Here's Zelensky's advisor, Mikhail Podolak.
In blowing up the Kakhovka hydropower plant, Russia is trying to suspend our counteroffensive, in this case, in the southern direction.
Fred Pleitgen is out front to begin our coverage in the flooded region.
Masses of water gushing from the gaping hole in the destroyed Novakharhovka Dam in Russian-controlled territory here in South Ukraine. Massive flooding quickly inundating villages on both shores of the mighty Dnipro River, impacting areas controlled by Ukrainians and by the Russians.
As you can see, there's a massive rescue effort going on here. The local authorities are using boats and also heavy trucks to get as many people out of the zone as they can.
65-year-old Nadezhda Chernyshova was stranded in her home with her cat Sonia for hours, fearing for her life. Now I'm not scared, she says, but there it was scary. Why, I ask? Because of the water. The water came and you don't know from where it comes and where it will go. The authorities here say they've evacuated hundreds of people throughout the day, at times under Russian fire, the head of Kherson's military administration tells me. We have the water, he says. Mines are floating to here, and this district is constantly being shelled. 2 policemen were injured while evacuating people. Kyiv blames Moscow for allegedly blowing up the dam, an angry Ukrainian president saying the Russians are trying to derail Ukraine's current battlefield gains. It was mined by the Russian occupiers, he says, and they blew it up. This once again demonstrates the cynicism with which Russia treats the people whose land it has captured. The destruction of the dam comes as Ukrainian forces have been making gains on the battlefield, what some believe may be the early stages of Kyiv's long-awaited counter-offensive, even though the Ukrainians haven't confirmed that. Russia's army denies blowing up the dam, instead blaming the Ukrainians. Aiming to prevent the offensive operations by the Russian army on this section of the front line, the Kyiv regime committed an act of sabotage, or rather, terrorist act, the defense minister said. While the floodwaters are affecting ever more areas around Kherson, upstream the levels are critically low, around the Zaporizhia power plant, the biggest in all of Europe, which relies on a pond connected to the river for cooling. The International Atomic Energy Agency says so far there's no danger, but that could change.
It is therefore vital that this cooling pond remains intact. Nothing must be done to potentially undermine its integrity.
So there you can see, Aaron, an extremely difficult and dangerous situation down here in the south of Ukraine with that massive river just continuously flooding. And I think there's 2 things that our viewers really need to be aware of. On the one hand, those floodwaters are rising extremely quickly. We were on the ground there today, and just in the short period of time, that water went up considerably. And the other thing is, The Russian army is very close to this place. There is constant shelling going on here. In fact, as I'm speaking to you right now, I'm hearing those thuds in the distance. And this comes as Ukrainian officials are saying they believe that more than 1,000 houses are underwater just in the Ukrainian-controlled territories of the flood zone. Aaron?
Fred, thank you very much. Live in Kherson, in the midst of that flooding, you could hear him saying, you hear the thuds of the shelling in the distance. Inna Suvsin joins me now, a member of Ukraine's parliament. And Inna, I appreciate your time. Obviously, I know it is very late where you are, or very early in the morning. Does Ukraine have proof that Russia is responsible for the dam explosion and break?
Well, of course, we cannot provide a very specific proof because the dam has been under Russian control for months now. And I think that is the single proof that we can provide, is that the dam is under Russian control. The explosion came from within, so it had to be done by someone who had control over the territory. And that those are the Russians who had the control over the territory. They were the only ones who could have actually done this. So this is as much evidence as we can provide, given that we do not have access to this territory now, and we didn't have access to this territory yesterday to set up such an explosion.
All right, well, it's crucial that everyone understand that. I think these are important facts. A senior NATO official has said today that U.S. and Western officials do see signs that the long-awaited counteroffensive against Russia is beginning. Obviously, when you're talking about 5 billion gallons of water now flooding a region, does the dam break, do you think, have any impact on the counteroffensive plans?
Well, it is definitely distracting our military, at least, right? People who could have been engaged in the counteroffensive efforts are now doing evacuation, are now helping with the people, with the humanitarian aid, and so on and so forth. So that is the least effect that it can have on the counteroffensive. Now, as you know very well, as of right now, the detailed plan of the counteroffensive is unclear, so we cannot confirm or deny that this could have been the direction of the counteroffensive. But the fact that it definitely diverts efforts from the military side to the humanitarian aid, which is also being provided by the military personnel on the south over there right now, that is definitely can be confirmed. So yes, I can say that it is part of the plan to suspend the counteroffensive. Whether it will be successful or not, I think the coming days will show.
All right, and of course the world is watching. And thank you so very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.